Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome, dear brothers and sisters in Islam, to Book Review. Our book for today is Woman Around the Messenger for Muhammad Ali Qutb. This book is a very special book. In this book, the author talks about all the women that came in the Sunnah, all the daughters of the Prophet ﷺ and his wives. Our guest for today is a very prominent propagator of Islam in English in the West and in the Middle East and Asia. We're proud to have with us Sheikh Asim Al-Hakim. Sheikh Asim, welcome to our program. Jazakallah khair for giving us your time.
It's my pleasure being here.
Sheikh Asim, this book, Women Around the Messenger, tell us, why do you think the author wrote this book?
First of all, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillahi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa man ihtada bi Huda. A lot of the controversial issues against Islam, they originate from the status of women in Islam. So if I were to talk negatively about Islam, I would pick the issue of women.
Okay.
And women are subjugated, they are looked down at, and they're deprived from their rights. You have to go to the origin of Islam and when it began, so that you can separate culture from religion.
Okay.
To know the importance of women in Islam. For example, the Prophet said that females are the sisters of males.
Exactly.
Which means that they share exactly the same
they have the same obligations and they get the same reward on the good deeds that they do.
Exactly.
Okay.
So once you know this, you know that, okay, they're equal. But when I say they're equal, we do not have equality in Islam. We have fairness in Islam,
Okay.
justice in Islam. Because if I say men and women are equal, my wife would come to me and say, okay, next year you're the one who's going to be pregnant and give birth to a child. There's no equality.
Okay.
And Allah stated that in the Quran, وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى, and males are not like females. They're separate. But they are instructed to do things in the same fashion, and sometimes there are differences between them. So once you know this, and you look at the biography of the Prophet ﷺ, you see that he had wives, and you see that he had 4 daughters, and you see that he was surrounded by female companions, not in the sense that they were his bodyguards or that he used to socialize with them, but women had a role in his life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So once you get to know them, females, especially sisters, would get a sense of responsibility. Because a lot of the reverts sisters and the originally born Muslim sisters think that they have nothing to do, they have no role.
Okay.
On the contrary, once you read...
They have one of the most important roles.
Yes, once you read the book and you get to know the women who the Prophet ﷺ was surrounded by, you get a sense of their importance and responsibilities.
So he's trying to give examples of women in life of the Prophet ﷺ to show the reader, or to show the non-Muslims in particular, non-Muslim readers, I mean, how the Prophet treated women and how are women, the status of women in Islam. At the start of the book, the author starts talking about the greatest woman ever, Khadijah. Khadijah, may Allah be pleased with her. So can you talk to us about Khadijah? I know there's a lot to say about her, but just like give us a brief.
Okay, Khadijah, may Allah be pleased with her, was a perfect woman. See, this perfection does not come from how beauty you are, or what are the measures of a woman, like they claim nowadays that this is a 10, a woman who is a 10, or a perfect woman. The perfection in Islam is something that is in a holistic way.
Okay.
Khadijah was a 10, and there is no doubt in that, because the Prophet ﷺ said, among the men there are a lot who were perfect. But among the women, only 4 women were perfect. And among them was Khadijah bint Khuwaylid, may Allah be pleased with her. This woman was so wise, so loving, so caring. She married the Prophet ﷺ when she was about 40 years of age. Some narrations say she was 28 and the Prophet was 25. So she was older than him. She was a very rich woman and the Prophet was working for her, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when she saw that he was blessed, and this was before him becoming a messenger. When she saw that he was truthful, honest, and trustworthy, she thought that this was the one, because she was widowed twice, and she refused to marry anyone after that, though she had like gazillions of proposals from dignitaries of Quraysh, but she would not take anyone. When she saw the Prophet ﷺ, she's the one who sent her friend to propose. And this is not known or a custom of women doing this, but because she knew that he was the right one. And the Prophet ﷺ could not find anyone better than her, he married her. And he remained married to her alone until she died. Now, Allah granted him his offspring from her. And if you look at her status at the heart of the Prophet ﷺ, ask any individual, any Muslim, who is the most beloved to the Prophet's heart, ﷺ?
Khadijah.
People now would tell you Aisha, because Aisha came after the death of Khadijah. And this is what Aisha herself thought. One day a woman came seeking something from the Prophet ﷺ, and he recognized her voice, that she was Hala bint Khuwaylid, the sister of Khadijah. And this is long after she had passed away. And the Prophet, whenever he slaughtered a sheep or a camel, he would always tell them, give this to the relatives
of Khadijah.
Khadijah. So this woman came and the Prophet said, oh, Hala bint Khuwaylid, when he heard her voice. And this ignited the jealousy in Aisha's heart. And she said, every time you mention this old woman who died and her mouth is red or pink because her teeth fell down, and Allah has given you someone who's better. The Prophet ﷺ, by Allah, Allah did not give me someone who's better. She believed in me when everybody said you're a liar. She gave me her wealth and house when everybody kicked me out and dismissed me. She gave me children.
Support.
Of course. And Allah Azza wa Jal gave me children from her when He deprived me from children from you. By Allah, Allah did not substitute me better than her. Aisha said, by Allah, I would never ever mention her negatively after today. Now I know where I stand. So she was this type of a woman. And that is also something we should look deep into. In an authentic hadith, Jibreel comes to the Prophet ﷺ and says to him, Khadijah is coming with food and drink, and I want you to read her salam and tell her that Allah is giving you...
That's Jibreel.
That's Jibreel, angel Jibreel. And tell her that Allah is giving you the glad tiding of a mansion in paradise, made of a pearl, a hollow pearl. One big pearl, you know, the biggest you can find is this, but this is a mansion. And the characteristic of this mansion is that there is no loud noise and there is no tiresome, which means that you would not hear anyone's shouting or screaming, and you would not work in that home. Scholars say that this is exactly what Khadijah gave to the Prophet ﷺ, and that is why Allah is rewarding her.
So that's the wisdom behind.
In his house, he was a king. Not a single shout or screaming would be there that would interrupt his thoughts and his comfort zone, to the extent that she would not nag him like women do. She would not say, do this, do that, nothing. And the children were always quiet and loving and caring, and look at the offspring of the Prophet ﷺ. So there's no shouting or screaming in her house. And she never told him to go and fix your garment, go stitch your shoes, do this, go milk the goat, nothing. He was only to sit there and to contemplate and to relax. And that is why Khadijah, may Allah be pleased with her, was given this great reward. When all
and great status as well.
Of course. And while all the other wives of the Prophet ﷺ did not get this.
Sheikh, there is the hadith he mentions in the book where he talks about Khadijah as being the greatest woman ever, and he talks about Fatima as being the second greatest. Can you expand on that?
I would beg to differ, because
Okay.
this preference, preferring her over others, was not mentioned in the Sunnah to my knowledge.
Okay.
The Prophet told us that the perfect women were Khadijah, Asya, the wife of Pharaoh, and Maryam bint Imran, the mother of Jesus Christ, and Fatima bint Muhammad. Fatima,
But
the
there
daughter.
wasn't anything authentic saying she was the best.
This is to my knowledge that no, nothing came to mention her being the best of the women of all the Alameen.
Okay. He also he talks about a lot of the women in the Sunnah, but we're talking about like the greatest. So we want to move on to talking about Fatima, bint Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Okay.
So can you talk to us more about Fatima bint Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Fatima was the love of her father, and this love began when she was very little, before they migrated to Medina, when the idol worshippers would wait until he prostrates in the haram, in the masjid, near the Kaaba, and they would bring the guts and the filth that came from the guts of a camel recently slaughtered, and they put all of that on his back. And she would come as a toddler, walking, unable to walk straight, and she would remove that from his back and she would curse them. Fatima, may Allah be pleased with her, we don't have a lot about her in the Sunnah, but we know that she was one of the best wives to her father's cousin, Ali ibn Abi Talib. And this is also an indication that a lot of the people in the West, they say that marrying the cousin is forbidden because it's a mahram, it's a sister, and this is wrong.
This is wrong.
Ali ibn Abi Talib
It's
was
permissible to marry their cousin, right?
It is permissible because Ali ibn Abi Talib was the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, the straight cousin. And the Prophet gave him Fatima, his daughter, in marriage. And we know that she was the best wife to her husband, but we don't have a lot that fills the gap for us, except that we believe in what the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam. The Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whenever he was sitting down and Fatima walked in, he used to stand up.
Okay.
And he used to embrace her and kiss her between her eyes.
So he's a great father.
And whenever she was sitting and he comes in, she would do the same.
Okay.
So he loved her a lot. He respected her a lot, and she loved her father like any daughter would do with her father, and a little bit extra. So we don't have a lot of info about her except her unconditional love and compassion towards her father.
In the book, he talks about the incident where the Prophet ﷺ was in the illness of death, and Fatima came into his room, and she went out and spoke with her husband Ali radiallahu anhu. Can you expand on that?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, if you're referring to the incident where she came and the Prophet was ill and he told her to draw close, and he whispered a few words in her ears and she cried.
Okay.
And then he whispered again and she laughed.
That was very affecting, so I just want you to...
Yeah, this was Aisha reporting this, may Allah be pleased with her. And she said...
She was reporting it about Fatima.
Yes, and she said, I went to her and asked her, what did he say to you? And he said, I cannot say that, that's a secret. So after the Prophet ﷺ had died, then she told her that the Prophet ﷺ told me that this is my dying moments and I'm going to die in my illness. So she cried. And then the Prophet comforted her ﷺ, and he told her, by the way, you are the first of my family to catch up with me and die. So she laughed. And she actually died 6 months after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, and she was the first one of his family to die after him.
The point affected me a lot, that's why I was asking you about it. Sheikh, we have to take a short break. Dear brothers and sisters, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. So stay tuned to more book review. Welcome back, brothers and sisters in Islam, to book review. We're talking about Women Around the Messenger. Women Around the Messenger is a very interesting and exciting book where the author talks about the women that were in the Messenger's life. The women mentioned in the Sunnah, his daughters, alayhi salatu wassalam, his wives, and other affecting women to the Muslim Ummah. Sheikh Asim Al-Hakim is our guest for today. Sheikh Asim, welcome back.
Jazakumullah khair.
Sheikh Asim, before the break we talked about Khadijah and we talked about Fatima. Now we want to talk about Salama. Salama had a very important role and she was a wife of the Prophet ﷺ. Talk to us about Salama before the Prophet married her, and then we want to talk about her when after the Prophet married her and the story where the Prophet ﷺ married her.
Salama, may Allah be pleased with her, was married to Abu Salama. And Abu Salama, to those who do not know, was one of the great companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and he was the brother of the Prophet ﷺ through suckling. So they were suckled by the same woman. And Abu Salama and Salama were among the first to accept Islam. And this meant that they were tormented and tortured and abused by their people, which made them qualified to take the first migration to Abyssinia. So once the Prophet ﷺ permitted them to do so, they were among the first migrants to go to Abyssinia.
Okay.
And she loved her husband greatly, and she had 4 children of him.
So she was one of the first believers of
Yes.
Salama. Okay.
Yes. And her husband was a close companion of the Prophet ﷺ, but he was injured severely in the Battle of Uhud on the 3rd year of the Hijrah and died soon afterwards. After Salama became a widow, and then she was out of her iddah period, which is 4 months and 10 days, then she started getting proposals, but she did not want to marry anyone. Abu Bakr proposed to her, and she rejected him. And you know who Abu Bakr was. And she had great love to her husband. And her husband, on his dying bed, said, "Oh Allah Azza wa Jal, grant her someone better than me."
Okay.
And of course, for a loving wife, this is not something you want. And she said to us, may Allah be pleased with her, that when my husband died, I remembered the supplication of the Prophet ﷺ. And he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whoever says, "Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un, Allahumma ajirni fi musibati wa khulufni khayran minha," which translates to, we all belong to Allah Azza wa Jal, and to Him we shall return. Oh Allah, reward me in this calamity that had struck me, and substitute me something better than it.
Okay. She couldn't imagine what's better than
And the Prophet said, whoever said this, Allah would substitute him. And she said this dua out of obedience to the Prophet, thinking that who could be better than Abu Salama? Never to cross her mind that someone like the Prophet ﷺ would soon come and propose to her. But she declined.
Okay.
And justifying this by saying that I'm an old woman and I am too jealous and I have a lot of children. So the Prophet ﷺ replied to her by saying, I'm older than you, and I will supplicate to Allah to take away your jealousy. As for your children, they're mine. I will take care of them. So she accepted. Who could refuse? This is a proposal no one would refuse. And just a footnote. If someone is a womanizer, would he take someone who's a widow and has 4 children and she is in her 40s or 50s?
No way.
The Prophet ﷺ did not marry any of his wives as one single virgin, except Aisha. Had he wanted women, he would have had the most beautiful, virgins and rich and influential. All of his marriages were based on what draws people closer to Allah Azza wa Jal and what helps Islam. That is why he married Aisha, the daughter of his beloved Abu Bakr, companion. Hafsa, the daughter of Umar, and so on. So this is what she was like before the marriage of the Prophet ﷺ.
That's an excellent point. Sheikh, after she became one of the mothers of the faithful, Salama had a very important role in the Muslim Ummah. Can you expand on that?
Well, she had a lot of different incidents, but maybe the thing that you're referring to, I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, that in the expedition of Hudaybiyah, when the Prophet...
That's the one I meant. That's the incident that I meant.
Okay. When the Prophet went on the 6th year of Hijrah to perform Umrah, he was blocked in what's known Al-Hudaybiyah. The pagans, the idol worshippers, stopped him. And this was a precedent, because they would never prevent people from going to Mecca to perform Umrah. So why and how dare you do such a thing? So they stopped him, and they had this treaty. It's a different story.
Okay.
The point is that he ordered the companions to slaughter their sacrifice and to shave their heads 3 times.
And they wouldn't do that.
And none of them would do that.
Okay.
And this was a first. The Prophet, once he says something, they immediately do it. But he repeated it 3 times.
Okay.
The Prophet went angrily to his tent. He met Salama, and he told her, look at your people. I'm ordering them and they're not complying.
Okay.
She said, O Prophet of Allah, don't worry. Go out, do not speak to a single person, and slaughter your camels or your sacrifice and shave your head. And look what they will do. So the Prophet did this in accordance to this consultation of this wise woman. May Allah be pleased with her. And the minute the companions saw the Prophet ﷺ doing this, they rushed to slaughtering their sacrifices and shaving their heads, to the extent that they almost killed one another, because wanting to do it as fast and as soon as possible. So she was a wise woman. Not only that, we know that the Prophet had 9 wives, and they were 2 parties. So Aisha and Hafsa in one party, and Zainab, the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, and others in another party.
Okay.
And they had these competitions among them. And they had like Democrats and conservatives in a sense. And they were trying to win the heart of the Prophet ﷺ more than the other party. To the extent, whenever they had feud or problems, they used to make Salama the judge.
Okay.
And she was the
one. So she was a wise woman.
She was a wise woman, and she was the one who used to go to the Prophet and tells him, alayhi salam, fear Allah, you should be fair to the other women more than you love Aisha. Why? Scholars say because the Prophet made dua that Allah takes the jealousy of her heart. And that's why she would not take sides.
SubhanAllah. Sheikh Asim, let's move on to Asma bint Umays. Can you talk to us a little bit about her?
Asma bint Umays is a woman that lived at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and was a companion. But this woman is strange in the sense that she married 3 of the most prominent companions of the Prophet ﷺ. And this is again strange. Yani there is so much in display rather than the demand.
Okay.
So it is an issue of demand and supply. So there are lots of women. Why would 3 great companions marry the same woman?
She should be very special.
Definitely she was one of the most special women around the Prophet ﷺ. First of all, she was married to the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. And the Prophet used to say to Ja'far, to Ja'far, may Allah be pleased with him, that you resemble my character and my looks. And that would make Asma very happy to be married to someone this close to the Prophet ﷺ. Of course, Ja'far is the brother of Ali. And she migrated with him to Abyssinia and almost spent 15 years of their lives in Abyssinia worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal. And we know that Ja'far...
15 years.
15. And we know that Ja'far came to Medina on the 7th year of Hijrah. So, which means that if they traveled in like year 7 or 8 of Bi'tha, of the revelation to the Prophet ﷺ, this means that approximately 14 to 15 years they had spent there.
Okay.
When she came back to Medina and she visited Hafsa, Umar ibn Khattab saw her and he asked, who is this? And Hafsa said, that this is Asma bint Umays. He said, the Abyssinian, the one with the boat? And he's doing this as looking down at her.
Okay.
And she said, yes. He said to her, we are more worthy of the Prophet ﷺ than you, because you went to Abyssinia, you migrated. And she got frustrated, she got angry. And she said, by Allah, we are more worthy of the Prophet than you. You were with him, feeding the hungry, taking care of you, and teaching the ignorant, while we were miles and miles away without any help. And she went and complained to the Prophet ﷺ. And she told him, he said this and that. And the Prophet comforted her and said, you have two rewards, the reward of your hijrah and the reward of your companionship, because they migrated twice, one to Abyssinia and one to Medina, unlike Umar. And they were so happy with this, they used to come to her and say, please repeat the virtues of those who traveled to Abyssinia, because they made them feel proud. We know that her husband was martyred on the 8th year of Hijrah in the Battle of Mu'tah. And she was devastated. She had 3 children, Abdullah and Muhammad and the other one. And after she finished her iddah period, she cried, of course, when she learned about her husband. And the Prophet told her, do not slap your face and yourself and do the things of Jahiliyyah, of pre-Islam era. And he gave her not sort of legitimacy, he pardoned her in the sense that whoever was married to Ja'far and lost him, this is only normal.
Okay.
Now she had her son Abdullah and Muhammad and the third one, I forgot his name.
Okay.
She got married to Abu Bakr.
Subhanallah.
And now Abu Bakr is Abu Bakr. Why would he marry such a woman? Because she was a perfect woman, and Allah granted her from him Muhammad as well, another son, Ibn Abi Bakr.
Okay.
And soon afterwards, we know that Abu Bakr died 2 years after the Prophet ﷺ, and he instructed her to wash him, and she did. So she was grieved again in this beloved companion of the Prophet ﷺ, only to be married for the 3rd time by Ali ibn Abi Talib, who was her brother-in-law, and he married her because of her children who are his nephews, and because of his brother who was martyred in Mu'tah. And the story tells us that this wise woman,
Ja'far and Abu Bakr and Ali
ibn Abi Talib, 3 of the greatest companions of the Prophet. Now this story is a little bit funny, because Muhammad ibn Ja'far and Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, their mother is Asma.
Okay.
They fought one day and argued. Muhammad ibn Ja'far saying that my father is the best of the companions. Muhammad ibn Bakr says, my father is the best of the companions. So Ali was there, and he said, okay, you judge their issue. Who is right? So she looked and said to Muhammad ibn Ja'far, your father is the best of the youth, of the young men. And she looked at Abu Bakr's son, Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr, she said, your father is the best of the old men.
Very wise.
Ali looked at her and said, Asma, if my brother was the best of the youngsters and Abu Bakr was the best of the old men, what did you leave for me? So she diplomatically smiled and said, by Allah, 3, you're the worst of them, wallahi, this is good. Meaning, if the caliber that preceded you, like Ja'far and Abu Bakr, and you're the 3rd one in rank, well, this is a good thing to do. Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, said, by Allah, if you had said anything other than that, I would have abhorred you. I would have disliked you. Because this is the exact truth that you should say. And this is Asma bint Umays, may Allah be pleased with him.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. Sheikh, I'm afraid we ran out of time. We just gave an example of the prominent woman around the Messenger of Allah. Sheikh Asim al-Hakim, one of the most prominent propagators of Islam in the Middle East, Asia, and in Europe. Jazakallahu khairan. Thank you very much for your time and knowledge and wisdom. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, this is the end of this episode. We weren't able except to talk about Khadijah and Fatima and Salama and Asma bint Umays. If you want more, the book is there. Women Around the Messenger. I would advise all of you to read it. Jazakumullahu khairan. Until the next episode, I leave you in the care of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.